everybody, and welcome to the Ponytail show. This is like the first time in the Ponytail show's short existence that we've got more than one guest on the show at one time, but this is something dear to my heart. We're going to treat this as a kind of panel discussion, and it's basically about Instagram post that I saw from Glenn. Okay, first I'm going to introduce everyone. We got Glenjamn up the top. We've got Zen Sekizawa, and we've also got Devon Tsuno. Everyone is very highly creative, all based in LA, and feels strongly about, preserving the heritage of Little Japan in LA. So, okay, I saw a post by Glenn, basically talking about the brand called Mokuyobi, and they're just moving into. They've got a new space in Little Tokyo. Is that what it's called? Little Tokyo, in LA. Sorry, I'm not an LA person, so I'm coming from Bangkok here. I'm like a foreigner in this space. So that's the groundwork, but I'm going to take it to Devon now to kind of explain to everybody what the situation is, and then we can discuss the implications that this has on culture and community. Take it away, Devon.
Yeah, well, the story goes, I was on Instagram really late at night with Glenn and Zen, just like any old night. And Zen sent me a message, and she was like, wow, did you see this Mokuyobi brand? And why are you following them? and I remembered that the brand because I had seen it around in LA and a couple of other shops. So I clicked on their page and I saw that they had an announcement they were going to open in Little Tokyo. And I had always just assumed that it was like a Japanese brand or a Japanese American owned brand. And I started reading through the comments, and people were asking about their intention of opening in Little Tokyo, and some information about the spelling of the name Mokuyobi, and just kind of general questions about like why they were opening in Little Tokyo and what was their relationship with the history there. And I noticed that there were a few people who chimed in and asked questions, and some of them I knew as kind of longtime community members like then. And just the responses by the company were really offensive. Mm-hmm. Some of the things they said kind of were not just ignorant, but like very kind of aggressive and really hurt me, and really kind of made me think a lot about my grandmother and about my friends' families and things like that. So, yeah.
And what kind of comments were these? Just like maybe any of you can like jump in here. Like for people who have no clue about what's going on, and they're just like tuning in right now. What are those kind of hurtful things? And like, yeah, go for it, Zen.
I think that Little Tokyo in LA, and LA in general, is going through a really bad fight with gentrification and displacement. And the history of Little Tokyo is a place of displacement where it was a pickup and roundup site for incarceration. So, I think LA is, there's a lot of talk about food washing, art washing, gentrification, like most big cities are struggling with right now. So basically, like, Mokuyobi is opening up right next to the only architectural signifier we have in Little Tokyo, which is the Yagura on First Street, historic First Street North, right across from it. And And, somebody pointed out that this was owned by white people. And, they were lightly pressed on Instagram about their cultural appropriation, their name of their company, their Fujisan logo. And they just responded terribly by deleting and erasing comments. I mean, there's so many ways that this went wrong. They totally did this. Everything they did was wrong. They deleted comments. They were very antagonistic. They're very hostile. They're very threatening. They didn't take the critique at all. They were just like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but that's not the case. And then I think the one thing that really set me over the edge was they said, your elders and the community council your elders and the community council would be so disgusted if they knew how you were treating us, right? And Little Tokyo's foundation is based on a history of protest and fighting, against supremacy. And it's just so racist to talk about our elders and what they think, and I think that really, really rightfully angered and triggered thousands of people, and especially core community members in Little Tokyo who were also, erased and silenced.
When I, as an outsider, when I look at this issue, two core things come up for me. Because, for me, in my niche kind of fashion corner of the fashion world, I actually have a lot of friends who also, I realized after reposting things on Instagram who also know about this issue and feel very strongly about this issue. People who have stores very nearby as well. The two core issues here for me is number one, if you build a brand based on another culture, you need to understand the values of that culture on a deeply profound level, and you have to practice what you preach. Number one, full stop. Number two, this is in my point of view, is okay, how do you enter a community as an outsider? It's not wrong to do that, but how do you do that in a way where, to me, the idea of community itself is the foundation of who we are as humans. It's how we evolve. We cooperate to survive. How do we enter a space where we can embrace that community to enrich that community, so that everybody can thrive, in togetherness. And that strongly has a lot to do with the first point of how do you, of respecting and embodying the values of that particular community. Hey Glenn, you've been a bit silent here. I know you feel very strongly about this. What are the key issues here for you?
So, first of all, I'm not Japanese, and that's a big takeaway. I'm so angry coming from an outsider kind of perspective as another fellow Asian brother and sister, my background with Little Tokyo is more about my grandparents who are Korean would live in this Little Tokyo Towers elderly community. They lived there for about 20 years before they passed away. But I would go there to see them and hang out with them. And then we would take walks in Little Tokyo Village because it's sort of the park kind of for that community to go around and sort of, be somewhere familiar architecturally, storefront wise, food wise, and stuff like that. So I came more of I'm not an activist. I'm not always a community forward person like that, but it hit me to a core because I was pissed on behalf of you guys because it just sucks to see something like that. When someone is white, and says that, oh, I went to Japan, I got so inspired. I'm going to call my thing Mokuyobi, but I'm going to spell it wrong. And then I'm going to make a mountain thing because everybody knows how Mount Fuji looks. But I think that when I draw it, it looks so cute that whatever, you know, and I'm just like, bro, shut up. You know, it's just like to come from that perspective of like I have roots in terms of like my experiences with the community, but I've never like done everything like Zen and Devon have done, but through mutual friends, like I know Devon through mutual friends, and Zen I met through Devon. It's just one of those things, like I can feel the disrespect, just being your friend. And I think that's just like, if I can feel it and I'm not even a part of the community, how else does it feel to everyone else that's like in the surrounding community? And to see something like that, and like I went, bro, trust me, I went into the Instagram comments and everything as a troll, okay? Like I was like, if you're gonna do that to my friends, like I got your back, like I'm gonna make fun of you, I'm gonna do whatever you can. I want you to feel stupid because it's pretty stupid what you're doing, you know? And I literally saw them like delete comments, block people, and then the next day they're unblocking people and giving comments like in this like tone of austerity, you know, like saying like, you know, like we're so respectful and whatever. And it's like the number one thing about respect is you listen to what they say and you sort of do what they tell you to do. You know, it's like, I'm not Japanese. I don't act like a Japanese person just because and I've been to Tokyo and Japan and like Osaka and Kyoto a bunch of times, you know, but I don't like come back like wearing a kimono or putting my, you know, like fucking playing with a samurai sword or anything. You know, it's just like, I don't do that because I know that it's not an authentic version of myself. The thing is though, these fools are from South Pasadena and they play it off like they're like experts on Japanese culture. And like, just because like, you know, I don't think it's more stereotyping when you think everyone in Japan dresses in like kawaii, like color blocked clothing and like everyone is a Sanrio character at heart. It's not. They're complex people with a complex history, with like a rich, lush history. And like, but the main tenet of Japanese people from going to Japan is respect. And you're just stomping all over the number one key rule, you know? And I'm like, yo, man, you going down, you know? And that's the way I came at it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know me, like I go in hard if that happens. And it's like, and like you said, you saw it through my lens, which wasn't even like the lens of what the people that were going through, but you saw how pissed I was. Like I was just Instagramming about it like every day. I was finding like SNL clips of fake, you know, Japanese skits. And I was like, yo, this Julie chick reminds me of this like skit. And, you know, it's just like one of those things, like I'd rather fight it with humor than like, you know, there's a part of me that would love to like smash in the window with like a chair, you know, but you can't do that to get your message across. Like you can't resort to something lower than what the actual message is, you know?
I love that.
Like I have a lot of like terrible things I would say off the record, but in terms of like carrying the message, I have to like support my other brothers and sisters in them taking the lead, but I'll say some shit, you know, I'll totally say it because I want them to feel stupid. Like, and I have a lot of like, you know, I met Lauren through going to Paris a lot. Like I've gone to a lot of like fashion shows and stuff. Like we've dealt with a lot of fashion brands that have a lot of like, you know, a lot of respect. And I'm like, yo, before you respond to me, you should know like who my homies are, you know? Cause like, it's going to be really dumb when you come at me in your like, I know fashion vibe when I sort of know fashion too, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just funny.
I'm going to cut in now because like you touched on so many really good points that I want to explore. But okay, basically I feel like, you know, first of all, there's this kind of primal fear, i.e. like a kind of white fragility happening right now on one part of the story. To me, maybe perhaps the brand, when they moved into, you know, Little Tokyo and, you know, received this kind of backlash, you know, what they should have done was be open to feedback and constructive. And that's how community evolves and grows and is nourished. But instead, it seems like they've really gone in, they've closed and they've gone into their shell, which creates pain. It's, it creates, it's like very harmful to the local community. And I think that is the pain and anger that we are seeing as a reaction from this. Now, my intention for having this talk is to now kind of try and map out a way forward of how we can disarm this, kind of fear-based arms race. And like, what is a constructive way that a brand like this can make things right and move forward based on, experiencing everything that's happened. And another point that Glenn had was, to the point was, what is, it's about a brand's authenticity as well. You talked about, basing a lot of their designs on Japanese, the Japanese culture. So I didn't really know much about the brand itself, so I did a bit of homework and I went onto their website and I had a look at, they have a section on their website called values, which was exactly what I was thinking about when we were thinking about this issue. So it just seemed like there was a lot of wish-wash about it felt like I was being sold a vacuum cleaner, to be honest, when I read their values page. One great example for me, which doesn't have to do with the race issue, but has to do with a garment construction from the fashion point of view, just things like under their category ethical production, they write, "We want our transparency to give you, our customer, confidence about the product you are buying and the brand, ethics, and ethos that you are supporting." Now, that doesn't seem quite right to me when the brand's behavior is to delete comments and to, have such a strong response from their local community. It's quite, it feels like the situation has escalated quite fast and fast and furious. But what's interesting with all of us in this space right now is all of us are creative people. And I think another dimension that this has kind of hit home for all of us maybe is the fact that creativity and art is being weaponized or being used in a inauthentic way. So I was wondering if maybe, Devon, you had some thoughts about this issue as an artist yourself.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a teacher and I've been teaching for a really long time, and my students always come to me and they talk about the things they're inspired by and the things that they see out in the world, and I think that is so important and totally okay. But the way that they kind of proudly proclaimed that they don't work with any Japanese people. They don't employ or work with any Japanese Americans. And they've never collaborated with any Japanese or Japanese American designers or, anything like that. That kind of just like in your face, like, I don't care what you think. I know what's right, and I can do whatever I want. Is the type of disrespect that just I feel like is unacceptable, not only in like fashion, but in any creative field. I was just so offended by that, those statements and them referencing that they had family members who were Japanese American and tokenizing people in their family. I thought it was just so offensive. Yeah.
I think there's a misunderstanding here. We'll go to you next, and I think there's a misunderstanding that there is a need to prove your right to be part of this conversation as well, which it's not about that at all. To me, it's more about understanding how this hurts people and cracking your heart open to how your actions, naive or intentional, really hurt and cause suffering to people. You know, it causes vulnerability. Zen, did you have a thought there?
I did have a lot of thoughts. Like, I want to talk about like what Glenn had touched upon earlier, that like it's not just a Japanese American thing at this point. It's just like any marginalized person who has ever felt, you know, any sort of oppression can relate and be triggered by what's happening. That's very obvious from everyone who's reached out to us, and obvious from like all of this internet dialogue. And then, yeah, it's just, there, like, the last like 6 years that I've been fighting gentrification in different groups here in LA, like, it's obvious to me, like, you know, we voiced our concerns and then we told them what we wanted. You know, I think a lot of people were like, just change your name, don't make Little Tokyo merchandise, and just leave, you know. And they're like, no, we can't do that. We're not leaving, we can't change our name, and we're still gonna make Little Tokyo merchandise. So, you know, I think my experience has been with people like this, that they are never going to get it, and they're always going to require way more labor than is required from anybody, actually. And they just need to leave. I don't think at this point there's so much irreversible damage that has been done. You know, even their response in the community council meeting the other day was a scripted, soulless, dead-eyed response to, you know, and it was full of lies, and they were gaslighting us and everything like that. So it's like, they just need to leave, you know. And I think there's been a lot of fights in communities where that's the only choice. And I sincerely believe, and I feel like a lot of people, especially everybody who signed the petition, believe that they just need to go. They're just not going to be part of this community in any sort of constructive way at this point.
Now, I just want to tell everybody that you, Zen, and Devon are both part of something called J-Town Action and Solidarity. So I'm assuming that that petition came about through that group. If, like, before we get to explaining what that project is, I have a question. Like, what does the landlord say about, like, the landlord of the space? Like, what has there been any kind of input on that front? Anybody? Do we? Any of us know about, has there been any word on the landlord? Maybe Zen might know, or Devon.
Well, the landlord, you know, really doesn't care, and has systematically been finding ways to push what we call legacy businesses out of Little Tokyo and out of out of the plaza for many years. And that's the reason why Mokuyobi was able to secure that space, is because during the pandemic, they hid behind the pandemic and used it as a reason to not renew the leases of, you know, our historic businesses like Blue Whale, Jazz Bar, which has been a cultural center for jazz in Los Angeles for many decades. And then also the beauty store that my grandma used to go to and first imported Japanese cosmetics. And, you know, I have like personal connection to those spaces. Like after the war, my grandparents were so poor, and they lived in a trailer park in Burbank. And I just found out that the woman who owned that store helped my family get out of poverty, and was a really close friend. And now, businesses like that are getting pushed out. And it's all part of that plan. It's not something that's coincidental. It's Mokuyobi is taking advantage of that, and they're part of that violence against our community, and trying to erase us from that space.
Spaces. So Mokuyobi is opening up 2 spaces in not only underneath the Yagura on First Street, but they also have a forward-facing kiosk in Weller Court. Which, I mean, how much more space do you need to take up in this community that you don't represent? It's just outrageous.
It's just very small-minded thinking, and like, I just hope, I don't know, by somehow like that they're, I don't know, that by seeing, obviously it's not made any effect, that by seeing the pain of others, how their actions affect other people, it doesn't seem to have made any difference. But what was interesting is like, it seems like, so finding out that the landlord is also like a big contributor to this problem, it seems like the Mokuyobi issue is actually a symptom of a much larger problem of, gentrification that's happening worldwide, and this kind of watering down of culture that's happening, And I think what's interesting is like, yeah, we are in this weird pivotal time of shift between old world and new world. Like, I definitely see it. Gen Z amaze me. I don't know, as a teacher, Devon, what age group you're teaching, but for me, like, Gen Z are like incredible. I guess they're the first generation that have been born into being able to see the world, the whole world. And I see a lot of change happening from that. And I have high hopes for the future. But what I wanted to say about young people is like the importance of history. That's everything I'm about. If anyone listening like knows anything about what I do, is like, history is everything to me. My artwork stems from a kind of rediscovering of my history based on a very, I guess, like whitewashed Australian education that I got that didn't teach me anything about my Chinese history of like, the Mao's Cultural Revolution, why my grandma left China. But really, when we talk about whitewashing and gentrification, people don't know the crazy effects that happen when you remove culture from a society. Like, I have friends who live in mainland China now, and one of them's staying with me in Bangkok right now. The stories she tells me about a society that has been built off like no history and culture because it was burnt down during Mao's Cultural Revolution is insane. Dude, it's like, picture like girls going into coffee shops with suitcases, like with 10 changes of clothing just to take like 10 different Instagram selfies of themselves. What happens from taking away culture is lack thereof and complete horse shit of like style, culture, music, film, art, everything. And I think it's definitely a fight worth continuing. So Devon or Zen, do you want to just give us a little rundown on what J-Town Action and Solidarity is about and how people can check that out? Devon's looking at Zen. Zen's looking at Devon. It's a standoff. We've got a Texan standoff.
You talk about about Theo and We're the Unhoused, and
Okay. Well, J-Town Action and Solidarity is a group that we formed out of a need as artists in the community that want to function almost autonomously. You know, I think there's so many incredible groups in Little Tokyo that all are working towards the same goal, is helping and supporting Little Tokyo. And everybody also has their own opinions on how to do it. And I feel like we as a group that you can find on Instagram wanted to talk about and critique from an artistic lens how we deal with displacement in all forms, you know, and all forms of oppression and white supremacy. And my really good friend, Theo Henderson, who has this incredible podcast called We the Unhoused. And it's just such a radical form of compassion where he, as an unhoused person, talks to other unhoused people about their lives. You know, it's just like, it's super incredible. It's a whole voice that is obviously not heard enough, you know, and you know, we have been friends here in Chinatown for like probably 6 years now, and his podcast kind of came about during the pandemic, and now we can we thought this would be a good collaboration for us to talk about the overlapping stories of displacement in Little Tokyo and the Japanese American community, and how those stories overlap with the unhoused folks, you know, and, you know, try to create some sort of sympathy to those, you know, to those experiences, which are very, very similar, you know. And so we started a power up. We started doing these power ups, which are mutual aid stations that provide electricity, harm reduction needs, food, and medical supplies for the unhoused folks. And there is a Little Tokyo in LA borders with Skid Row, and there is an unhoused community encampment in Little Tokyo right now, which you know, is a very controversial subject in Little Tokyo, because I know a lot of people don't want to acknowledge it, you know. And I think that, like, we as artists, I really do believe that we as artists should be able to critique that and have those conversations with them ourselves. So, like, I'm like so happy that, like, you know, I feel like it's like a dream team. It's like me and Devon and Mario and Anna, like, you know, and there's so many other people now. And then we got people like Glenn supporting us on the side. Like, it's great. And yeah.
I love that. I mean, to me, like, the role of art in the world is just to share a different perspective for regular people who don't necessarily engage with the art world all the time. It's just giving them a new way of looking at the world, and that's a beautiful way, for sure. Devon, what do you feel is the most kind of enriching contribution that J-Town Action and Solidarity give to the world in your eyes?
Well,
Heavy question.
I think it's like, for me, you know, when the pandemic happened, my wife is a nurse, and I felt this overwhelming responsibility to not just help her, but also help other people who just didn't have simple things like a face shield. And so I spent the whole pandemic getting all my friends to buy 3D printers, and each of us had two 3D printers in our studios, and we all just started to print PPE. And, you know, that's what it's about. It's that there are these seemingly small things that everybody needs. And during the pandemic, it became very apparent that, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are. There are just these certain things they're human rights that we have. We should be able to protect ourselves, and that wasn't happening. And that's just like people are unhoused in Little Tokyo. It's like they have a right to have a warm meal every week or every day, and they have a right to be able to charge their phone, and also that. Like we've been talking about, Little Tokyo just isn't a place for Japanese Americans. It's a place in Los Angeles. It's part of our history in Los Angeles. And not only have Japanese Americans lived there, but it was also a Black community. And there's a lot of people like Glenn who have feel deeply connected to it. So it's just that kind of spirit of like mutual aid and community that goes beyond what we have and who our grandma was, it's, I feel like that's what this is about. And if in the course of it we can help these people who are living there and give them food and power and things like that, then great. So it's been really helpful for me, and kind of like you, Lauren, I've been kind of retracting my own family history and learning more about myself. So in the process, I've been learning a lot from Theo and from Zen and Anna and other people in our group.
Dude, so, if that's not the definition of community, is all the little things and being seen and heard by other people, then I don't know what is. I hope Mokuyobi can listen and hear this space, even if it's in secrecy. Now it's Glenn's turn. What do you want to say, Glenn?
So first of all, Lauren wanted just me to talk in this chat when I suggested that Zen and Devon should be in it because they actually are part of the community. And for the most part, I've just been here listening because I don't even know what to say because they're spitting out knowledge, like they are like the MLK. They're like the student non-action coordinating committee. Like they're the ones that should be at the front lines. I am the Molotov cocktail that you throw at the wall because I just want to see it all burn. Okay,
I love it.
So when I'm a part of this, I'm learning so much, and I'm so happy that like. Hey, Lauren hit me up because I just wanted to be the conduit to bring in these real voices into the conversation, to be honest. Like, and this is another thing that I don't know if we've really talked about yet, but it's like the climate in this, like in America lately, like there's so many news stories of like elderly Asians getting punched in the head. They're getting pushed. Like people that could be my grandparents.
So I'm just going to cut in just real quickly. Those stories have come all the way to like rural Thailand. People are terrified about that because especially there was one Thai man that an elderly Thai man that got shoved and died from that. And for us in Thailand, it just the idea of that, pushing an elder. First of all, a stranger, an elder, someone who's not doing anything is just like it's horrifying. Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, so in that climate that we're in, where like we're seeing the eyes of the world looking at like sort of the struggle that we've had as Asians a lot of our life. Like it goes from being a young kid being called like a chink when they're young. It gets being called like a gook or a nip or whatever, like. These are all things that like they say it to us because they don't think it's as bad as the N-word. Like we say the N-word to denote it, but other people say these words like it's nothing, So it's like when you hear that kind of language, you hear all these kinds of like terrible things that are happening to people that look almost like literally from the back of their heads, they look just like my aunt, just like my grandma. They all have the same haircut. They all wear puffy micro down jackets like during the winter.
Yes.
They could be my family members, all right? And to see someone like in Queens, New York get punched into like an embankment just because like he felt like it. Like you just see, and like you see that kind of like hurt that we go through. And then just to bring it back to like Mokuyobi, it's like you got to be out of your goddamn mind to be doing what you're doing when we're dealing with this. And all like there's Time magazine articles, there's like the Daily Show making like lighthearted but real serious pieces about it. There's like everyone is talking about it, and you want to be the guy, like you want to be the side that's like, no, we don't care. You know, like we still need to sell this color block denim jacket. You know, like we need to sell this like this fucking set of clothes that looks like a kindergarten like rug. You know, it's like, yo, stop that shit. You know, like just stop it. You know, and it's also like you're still not listening to us right now when everyone else is listening to us. Like you choose not to do it, and that whole ignorance thing, it's like also indicative of like I would say like the lighthearted racism that people like try to go around and say like there was a big article about like these white ladies that wanted to like make cool minimalist mahjong tiles and sell it for $400. And I'm like, are you out of your goddamn mind? These mahjong tiles are like $12 anywhere else you go. And like, and then it digs into a deeper thing of like the inherent Americanized racism that just exists, but is like accepted. Like there's American mahjong leagues, and you know, like they made a whole other league, but use the word mahjong, which is an Asian word, you know, and like, what are you trying to prove at that point? And why are you trying to like sort of whitewash something that's inherently Asian, you know? And then there's like those other bitches, like those other chicks that made like a jade egg for your vagina that are white girls.
What?
Yo, that shit was on Diet Prada, man. Like, it's not cool. They made a song like Kung Fu Fighting, like that tune Kung Fu Fighting, but talking about like vagina eggs. You know, I'm like, yo, y'all are crazy. And you guys have to be out of your, literally, once again, you got to be out of your goddamn mind to do this kind of shit when like everyone is like, yo, like this is the analogy. It's like, would you be like racist against black people during BLM? You know, like this is what we're sort of dealing with. Like we're dealing with like Asians getting hated on, and it's all in the news, and you still want to call us like a gook or something? You know, it's just like and this is what brings me back to like why I love trashing Mokuyobi, because I think they're so dumb that they do these kinds of things. Like they come with like this sense of entitlement. It's like literally you can't get away from the entitlement vibe that they put off, you know?
Yeah.
Like Devon and Zen, they sent me like these clips of like the Mokuyobi dudes like talking in the LTCC, like the Little Tokyo Community Council, like Zoom meeting or whatever. And like you could see them reading off a script, you know, like nothing is like from the heart. You could even see like the other dude mouthing the script, and you're just like, yo, man, like what is going on? Like you gotta like at least, yo, if you're gonna be like doing what you're doing, you gotta at least like not be so blatantly stupid looking as you're doing it. Because when you're that stupid, you bring the Glens into the audience that want to like fuck shit up, you know? Like I say, I'm like a glorified troll, not like an activist, but I'm here to like be the guy that like doesn't like, I want them to spit out the nice things, you know, the real things of how to help the community. I'm here to see that shit burn down. I'm bringing marshmallows. We're making s'mores. Like we're doing all that, you know, like you got to be crazy. Like you're going to put a cartoon neon Mount Fuji sign and be like in front of Japanese people. They're like, oh, what a cute mountain. That's not Mount Fuji. Like, you're stupid, man.
Yeah.
What is going on?
No.
Like,
dude, like, I just want to cut in here. Like, when you say, like, okay, I just want to say, dude, they're not ignorant. They know just as well what they're doing.
Right.
They know they're running a business here. Like, they know exactly what they're doing. You know, saying that the Mount Fuji sign is not Mount Fuji is like complete just total gaslighting as well. And like, to me, it's not ignorance that we're talking about. To me, it's like a defensiveness that happens when white people are their world is shattered and they are kind of suddenly privy to the idea that maybe they, had it pretty freaking easy, not experiencing, life as it is for many other people in the world. So, do you want to say something, Zen? You have your hand up.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Glenn. I love that energy. But I also, I think it is this perfect storm of like everything. Like this is such a fucking slam dunk for this community. And I'll be very bummed if Mokuyobi opens without any sort of repercussions. I mean, I'll be pissed if they open, even though I think I'll be pissed if they open regardless at this point. But, I don't even want to think about that. I just want to focus on just them getting Little Tokyo and changing their name and just disappearing. But I think that, I think what infuriates, so many people that have voiced their concerns and opinions about this is the fact that this idea of Asians being docile and quiet and hoping that this and not standing up for it, and it's just that sort of audacity.
That's a stereotype.
It's totally a stereotype. I think that that's why people are so fucking pissed. And I hope people still stay pissed because I only think Mokuyobi wants this to go away. They're just going to be like, this is going to go away. Everybody's going to be fine. And I really do not want that to happen. I think that they need to understand, especially in Little Tokyo, where people have a big voice and people should express themselves. And I feel like, especially now, I had another point, but I already forgot. There's so much to talk about. I feel like we could talk about this for hours. It feels like a therapy session because I don't think we've really had the time, even as a group, to really process all of this because it's been happening so fast. And plus we've been trying to really focus and not take away energy from our mutual aid. Yeah. So this is such a helpful conversation. I really appreciate it.
I'm so happy that this is contributing somehow. If there is any maybe different perspective that I can shed onto the issue, we are all Asians talking about this, but I am a little different. I'm only half Asian, and I have had this kind of battle that you're having physically in the real world. I've been having this battle not only within myself, but with my family members, my white family members, who definitely, for example, my dad, Dad, if you're listening, I love you. But yeah, my dad is a beautiful example of a well-intended white man who behaves sometimes very insensitively towards other races, but doesn't intend for it, but is, when I pull him up for it, closes and becomes defensive. And I know he's better than that, but that is the reaction. That's white fragility in itself. And I just want to shed that other perspective, just to acknowledge that that could be also what's happening. Sometimes it's not ignorance. We're all educated, worldly people. We have access to the internet now. There's no excuse, pretty much. But my intention is to disarm this defensiveness that causes so much harm and prevents moving forward and prevents evolution. Dude, one day we're going to be all so mixed race-wise that this hopefully will not be an issue of the future, but it will continue to be an issue of the future if we don't have these conversations about the importance of art and culture and history and love and pain and all these things. Devon, you wanted to say something.
Oh no,
You were like getting ready to say something.
no, I was just agreeing, but yeah, I think I don't know. I would hope that if they, heard my voice and they heard me talk about why it's so upsetting that it's not just this internet troll game that's going on, that these are real people's lives they're messing with, that they would have some compassion. But at this point, I really don't think that. I really don't think they have compassion. I
Well,
don't think they understand. But I appreciate it. I want to. It's just I'm still very angry.
Yeah.
I go back and forth about this, about what like this idea of like being able to come together and understanding. But I also think that like if people don't have the capacity to, they never will. And I do believe like white supremacy is a white person's problem, and it's not a person of color's problem to deal with their problem. They can only deal with that problem. It's not our job.
Yeah. And to your point, when people clearly demonstrate that they don't have the capacity for that, for seeing outside their very small world, it's important for people around to make boundaries so that they don't continue to be hurt by those people as well.
Absolutely. And I feel like that is definitely the way I perceive what's happening with Mokuyobi in Little Tokyo. Like,
I see.
It's clear to me, and I feel like a lot of other people, that they have proven that they do not have the capacity to be even lightly pressed in the beginning, to have it escalate this far and still doubling down, tripling down, like lying constantly, still deleting comments. Like, they don't have the capacity to be in this community. They don't have the luxury to be in this community. Like, Little Tokyo is an amazing community, and I really do hope that everyone in this community can see that we don't need that sort of business here. And that there's so much damage that has been done in the last week and a half that like seeing a Mokuyobi store open is going to be such a bummer for the people like me who have to go to the grocery store and pass by that store every day, or like go get my coffee, and like I think that's a really big issue that I hope the other organizations in Little Tokyo understand, and there's so many other things that Little Tokyo is fighting for. We're under like the pressure of all this development, metro and stuff like that. We have so many fights against displacement and gentrification, but this is the same conversation, on a very, very tangible level. And I also want to say that like Mokuyobi is so defensive because their whole identity for their brand is stolen.
Yes.
Like, and I think
it's so inauthentic.
It's so inauthentic. And we don't even talk about like, this sort of like rainbow flag, like posing as like a queer company as well. I have so many friends, Asian friends that are gay that were like, oh my God, I thought they were like, this company that was like queer and Asian, and they were like, I'm so appalled. And but like that's not a conversation that I can really talk about comfortably, but like I hope somebody does.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up this conversation today. To brands out there who are trying to make a buck off tokenism, don't do it. Be better than that. People are better than that. And customers are better than that. Treat your customers like they are the smartest, most evolved, beautiful human beings on the planet. And yes, I'd like to go around to everybody, just if you'd have one sentence to say to Mokuyobi, this is your time to shine. Let's start with who wants to start? Let's start with Glenn.
Burn, baby, burn. You dumb motherfuckers, get the fuck out of Little Tokyo. Listen to the people in your ears. Are you colorblind? Because that's way too much color in one piece of clothing. You say ethical treatment for workers. Everyone should be ethical for their workers. Like, y'all are some dumb ass mother. Peace.
That was the longest sentence I've ever. There was a lot of commas in that sentence. So thank you, Glenn. Devon, what would you like to say?
I would just like to tell them to leave. And that's really your only choice at this point. That it's unrepairable. That anything you do or anything you say is just it's just past that. Unfortunately, you had your opportunity, and you've had your opportunity many, many times, and it just, you don't take it seriously. You don't take us seriously. And I take my family seriously, and I take LA seriously, and I'm not going anywhere. And if I'm not fighting for it, my kid will be, in a few years. So it's scary times for people like you who won't listen.
Yeah. Beautiful. And Zen, what do you have to say?
I think the very least that Mokuyobi could do, in my opinion, is to get the fuck out of Little Tokyo.
She said it. Glenn's just got to light her out. But, well, thank you so much for your input, for listening, for your time. I really appreciate this. My heart it's both heavy and full at the same time, just listening to you guys. And I'll post the links to J-Town Action and Solidarity, and also your your contacts for your work down the bottom. But thanks, guys, and bye for now. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Lauren.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.